Right. Got it. Okay. Um, so we have Natalia, Sarah, Jeremy, Catherine. Hello, hi. I can't see them. Okay. Everybody has their screens on. Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. Um, Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come by and kind of listen a little bit about the school counseling program. So let's see, that's me on the screen there at the top. I am Luis Antonio Tosado. I am the program director for the school counseling program here at UB. Um, in our program, we have a clinical coordinator or placement coordinator. Her name is Tammy Prosser. We have Dr. Katie Leo Srush, and we also have a vacancy. We're actually going to have one more faculty member by next year that we're hiring. Um, so again, hello, thank you for coming, thank you for participating, and I'm going to go through very quickly and give you a little information about our program, and then I'll answer any questions that you have. Since it's a smaller group, um, you know, it's a little more cozy and comfortable, and we can feel free to ask questions. So I'm going to talk about the role of the school counselor, and this is all briefly. I'll tell you a little bit about our department. I'll tell you a little bit about New York State certification. I'll tell you a little bit about our program, our curriculum, um, admissions procedures, and then we'll take some time to answer questions. Um, all right, so we can go to slide 3. Thank you. A little bit about the role of the school counselor. I do, if you're going to apply, I do want you to do some research on the role of the school counselor and what it is that school counselors do to be prepared for the interview. So a little bit, so school counselors support students academically. But in addition to helping students academically, they also help students with getting ready for college and having a plan after they graduate. And they also work in schools with students on social emotional development. So those are the three big things that school counselors work with students on: academics, social emotional development, and college and career readiness. New York State requires that every student in K-12 actually have access to a school counselor. So that's a good thing. Um, every student in grades 6 through 12 in New York State must have um, a school counselor that they meet with at least once per year. Um, a little homework for you is to look at those two links. So to learn a little bit more about school counselors, there are two links there. I suggest you check them out. One of them is the American School Counselor Association, and there at least take a look at the role of the school counselor and the role statement, and also um, look at their discussion regarding how school counselors work with school psychologists and school social workers. So you can begin to see the difference of those three different professionals. Also, I would suggest you go to the American Counseling Association and look at their links and look at the different types of counselors, right? Because there are licensed mental health counselors, there's rehabilitation counselors, or different type of group workers. And I'm just saying this as much as I want you to apply to the school counseling program. I think people need to find the right program. They need to find the right fit, right? And maybe it's not school counseling that you're looking for. Maybe it's rehab counseling or mental health counseling. So make sure you enroll in the right program. Um, so I would make another suggestion before, coming to a school counseling program. I suggest that you maybe shadow or interview a school counselor if you have an opportunity. I really encourage that. Um, and again, part of that is so that you can see the differences, right? So school counselors are advocates and coordinators for all the students. School psychologists, they often focus on some specific type of academic issue, maybe learning ability, maybe they do some assessments. Social workers tend to work more with families and communities. Again, those are really quick definitions. Um, if you think you want to do a lot of counseling or therapy, you might want to look into mental health counseling or social work. right? Not school counseling. So because the reality is that for school counselors, we're really looking at things, doing things in the school, right? Like presenting, you might be going in to present classroom guidance lessons. You might be doing small groups with kids. You might be meeting individually to do individual counseling, but very brief individual counseling with kids in the schools. You'll probably be meeting with parents and teachers. So you're going to be doing a lot of preventative rather than remedial work. Okay, so we're already on the next slide, a little bit about the department. So the university is a large university, right? We're one of the, we're a large university, we're a large state university, we're a research intensive university. But our department, within the Graduate School of Education is small in terms of numbers. So most of your classes will be in one building. Most of them will be in Baldy Hall, on the fourth floor or on the first floor. There's a student lounge here for students to hang out. You're going to have access to your faculty regularly. It's a little bit different than an undergraduate program where you might have 70 or 100 students in a class. You're not going to have more than 20 students in a class here. While it's a large university, it's a small community on campus, so you're not going to feel overwhelmed if you didn't go to undergrad here. There are doctoral programs in our department. So there's a combined counseling and school psychology program. There's also an educational psychology program that focuses on analyzing data, statistics, doing program evaluations. There are other master's degrees like in rehab counseling, educational psychology, school psychology, mental health counseling, that kind of stuff. Let's see. And there's also certificates of advanced study. So basically, some of those certificates are after you get a master's degree, then you come back and get some of those certificates in rehab counseling or mental health counseling or school counseling. But you're not going to need the one in school counseling if you get a master's degree from us. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in terms of certification, and this is a slide where people tend to get a little confused because there are New York State certification requirements, and then each university has its own requirements on top of that or beyond that. So let's kind of talk about this vocabulary here. So New York, this is what the New York State requires. They require you to participate in a program that leads to initial and or professional certification. An initial certification in New York State, the minimum a master's program is 48 credit hours. If you happen to go to a university where you have a program that's 48 hours, then you're also going to have to get a certificate of advanced study that's 12 credits or 12 hours so that it totals 60 hours, right? So you don't have to worry about that with us because our program is 61 credit hours, so you don't have to get two different certifications. Or I'm sorry, you don't have to do a master's and a CAS. CAS is Certificate of Advanced Study. So once you get, so you'll need your initial certification, you'll need your professional certification, you'll need to take the New York State exam, and you'll need 3 years of experience before you can get become an actual professional certified school counselor. This is again, that's where I get. So I've talked a lot, but I haven't talked about UB yet. That's like New York State requirements. Now, what we do at UB is it's a 2-year program. So it's a full-time master's in education, right? It's 61 credit hours. If you complete our program, upon graduation, you'll be initially certified and you'll be eligible for professional certification, okay? And then when you pass the exam and you have 3 years of experience, then you will be professionally certified. And that's not just UB, that's pretty much any program. Any program that's 60 credits or more, that's pretty much the same process. And then every 5 years, you will need to recertify. So that means you're going to have to take a certain X number of professional development hours to recertify that degree. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. So I want to talk about, some unique features of our program. one of them is that, you know, we have a strong focus on equity, access, social justice. Our faculty members focus on their research around equity, access, and social justice. We have a multicultural counseling class. We have class on social justice and advocacy in schools. So it's a strong lens through which we look, and it's a we pay a lot of attention to EDI here. DEI, sorry. The first placement. One of the things that we're proud of is that in our program, from the first day of that first fall semester, you're placed in a school. So you will be in a school fall, spring, fall, spring. So every full semester that you're here, you're going to be placed in a school. All schools don't do that. We do. We think it's very important to, I think it gives you a leg up. You'll have about 900 hours. When you count the 600 hours of internship and the 150 hours of practicum and the 150 hours of field placement, you'll be in the school's 900 hours total. Let's see. The first semester of field work is mainly observing and shadowing. You'll be assigned to a counselor. They might, for example, teach some classroom guidance lessons 3 or 4 times, and then they'll step out, or they'll have you jump in and help them out and do lessons as well. The second semester, that first year, you take practicum. That's where you really start providing services. You have to do 150 hours in the practicum class of placement. 50 of those hours are going to be direct hours. Direct hours is one-on-one with students. So 40 of those hours are going to be one-on-one, and another 10 hours are going to be in small groups. And I'll pause a little later to ask if you want to ask questions. Let's see, like you might be running a group with children of divorce, or you might be doing a group of social skills, or you might be doing a grief and loss group. In that first year, we also have students do about 28 to 30 interviews and observations, right, to get a real feel or understanding for the school. And what's really cool about that is after you've done all those interviews and observations in the fall semester, you will have met, you know, all the key stakeholders in the building, like the school social worker, the school nurse, the principals, a lot of the teachers, and that's going to help you when you're actually enrolled in practicum, where you get a little bit more leeway and you get a little bit more thrown at you. You get more of a caseload. So it's going to benefit you the second semester. We have a dedicated placement coordinator. A lot of schools don't have that either. Students have to find their own placements. We actually have someone whose job it is to find placements for you. They're going to find counselors. About 95% of those counselors are considered tenured, right? And certified. The only time that you might not have a tenured person is maybe if you happen to be placed in a charter school or a private school where there is no tenure, but the person has the same characteristics of someone that's tenured, right? So they've worked in the schools at least 3 to 4 years or 3 years. Let's see. The placement coordinator kind of orients the counselors to our program and what you're required to do. They find out a little bit about you once you're accepted to the program to help them place you. They'll ask you what your preferences are, whether you want elementary, middle, or high to begin with. And they try to put you there. Although all of you, everyone that gets accepted into the program, will at some point or another be exposed to all those grade levels anyway, right? Because that's a New York State requirement. You are required to have a 9-12 placement, and you are required to have a K-8 placement at the minimum. Let's see. An advantage, so we have doctoral students here, right? So we're a research intensive university. We're a flagship campus in the SUNY system, right? So we have doctoral programs. And the advantage of having a doctoral program is that those doctoral students also serve as supervisors for you. So the advanced students that are in the doctoral program, when you're in practicum, will provide a 1-hour face-to-face supervision for you. That will be in addition to the supervision that's being provided by the counselors. I know the counselors in the schools are very busy, so it's really cool that you have another person. So you'll have the instructor, a faculty member, that's providing supervision to you. You'll have a doctoral student that's providing supervision to you, and you'll have the cooperating counselor, which is the counselor in the building that's providing supervision to you. I think I've already mentioned that you're going to get experience or be placed at the different grade levels. But something else that we try to do is also give you a diverse experience, right? So we try to give you experience in urban, suburban, and rural schools if possible, right? So at least two of those three, right? So for example, if you're in Williamsville the first year, you won't be like in Orchard Park the next year because those are both suburban. So then you would probably get like a Buffalo school. Or if you're in a Buffalo school, then you might get Akron the next year, right? Because the setting is different. But let's see. Again, the main goal is to try to give you different experiences when it comes to placements. There's a portfolio that's required. So some programs have a master's thesis, a research project, comprehensive exams. One of those is required. We choose a portfolio. It's like a toolbox that you can use after you graduate. You'll have guidance lessons in there, websites, resumes, your school counseling philosophy, cover letters, etc. Something else that's really that the students enjoy is the opportunity to participate in mock interviews. So your second year in the program, near the end, when you're getting close to graduation, we actually bring principals, real principals from schools that are local to do interviews. So you'll sit down and it's good practice. So and they're actually graded and they have to pass the interview. And we do that a week or two before the teacher recruitment day in Buffalo. So in Buffalo, every year there's a teacher recruitment day where recruiters from across the country come and they, and our students try to get jobs, right? So we do those interviews before the teacher recruitment day to get you prepped for getting a job. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. So the curriculum, year one, you see the curriculum there, right? So semester one, so it's a 2 year. So again, this is a 2-year full-time program. So we actually start in the summer. You see, we start with the foundations of counseling theory, career development. Then you see in the fall, there's 12 credit hours that you take. Then in the spring, there's another 13 credit hours that you take. So you kind of get a feel for what the classes are. All right, you can go to the next slide. And the same thing there. The following year, again, you start in the summer with test and measurement and introduction to statistics. And then you have the leading and evaluating comprehensive school counseling. You have the social justice class. You have internship, right? So internships is 6 credits because it's 300 hours, folks, right? And then in the spring, you have a group work class, a process of consultation, and then another internship. Now, I will say that there's a mistake on this slide, and I guess this is an old. So the mistake on this slide is, if you see fall semesters 2, you see that class that's 648, leading and evaluating comprehensive school counseling programs. That one actually switched with the spring class group work in schools. So CEP 505 there and CEP 648 just flip-flopped. So that's the only mistake there. So I'll have to fix that. All right, next slide, please. Actually, let me take a breath and see if there are any questions about any of the slides that I've currently that I covered, because I have a little bit more to cover. Okay. Let me just go ahead and cover this, and then I'll pause and ask questions. All right. So applications for the fall 2024 are due January 15th. We only admit one time of year, and that's in the summer. I want to talk a little bit about letters of recommendation, right? So this is advice and suggestions for you, right? Try to get at least one letter that's academic, right? And then at least one letter that's maybe employment-based, right? So If you have a job of some sort that's related to working with kids, that would be a good place to get a letter, right? If you're strong academically, and maybe you've done research, or you've done different things at your university, you might want a faculty member to write a letter for you. Okay, so what do we want to see in these letters? Well, we want to see that you have the ability to succeed in graduate school, right? So you have to, we want to know that you can think critically, or do you think critically? Are you analytical? Because if you don't have those skills, it's going to be a struggle, right? There's a lot of, um, you have to be able to think critically to be a school counselor and succeed in our program. If you've been out of school for a long time, it might not be a letter from a professor. It might be someone that has a graduate degree that works with you, or an employee, or is employed where you are, or your boss or your supervisor or something like that. Employment. If you have employment, it doesn't necessarily have to be paid employment, but if you have any kind of employment that shows that you've worked with kids, you want to put that on that resume, right? We want to, they might want to address that in a letter. So if you worked at a Sunday school, or if you've done Big Brothers or Big Sisters, or if you've done some kind of work with restorative practices, downtown or something, all that stuff looks good on your resume. So make sure you put it in there. And if you work in one of those types of places where you're working with kids, you might want to get a letter from that individual. That's your supervisor. Okay, so we like to see someone that can talk about your interpersonal skills, your counseling skills, and can talk about your dependability and your reliability. Here, we're going to teach you counseling skills, but you need to have some interpersonal skills. So, like, if one of your recommender writes that, they really work better by themselves, that might be a red flag to us, right? That you might not be ready for a team, a job where you're required to be a team player. As a school counselor, you're going to have to be a team player. You're going to work. You're going to do a lot of collaboration with people in the building. Let's see. Just some questions in my mind. I want to know, what are your experiences in schools? Do you like working in schools? Have you worked as a student aide? Have you worked as a substitute teacher? Let me know any kind of experience that you have in schools. I also would want to know, what are your experience with children and adolescents? So maybe you haven't worked in schools, but maybe you've been a nanny, or you've been a tutor, or you've been some kind of child care worker. Let us know that. Um, why do you want to be a school counselor, right? So we're really looking to understand and assess if you really understand the job, the role of what school counselors do. And that's why I told you about those websites and those other professions. I'm not trying to dissuade you from the program, but I want to make sure that this is the right program for you, because it has to be a fit for both. It has to be a fit for you. It has to be a fit for us. If you think you're going to close your door, and do 8 counseling sessions a day as a school counselor, this is not the right profession, because that's not what school counselors do, right? School counselors don't see one student for an hour at a time and only see 8 students a day. There's a lot of work that goes into being a school counselor. We want you to know, so a little bit more, when you do the application, tell us things that we need to know about you that we might not know. So if you've been out of school for a long time, and you've been working, let us know that, so that, and let us know what you've been doing. If you were a pre-med major and your GPA was low, right, and then you switched to psychology and the GPA went up, let us know that, right? Because we'll take that into consideration. Or if you had one bad semester, tell us tell us, and let us know what you did to improve, right? And so if you bombed the semester, that's fine, but let us know what you did to improve. GREs are not required, but they're helpful. If you have a lower GPA, maybe a higher GRE will help. But again, GRE scores are not required. Let's see, the process. A little bit about the process. We're going to look over everyone's applications. Once the deadline closes, then we're going to invite, it's going to be a quick turnaround. Then in July, I'm sorry, in February, we have interviews. So I think it's the first weekend of February, that first Saturday, I believe. We're going to invite people to campus. There'll be group interviews. You'll talk to folks. You'll see students. You'll 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 see some of our current students. They'll interact with you. Someone, if you're not local or if you're not familiar with UB, someone will give you a tour of the campus. Let's see. Let me pause for a second here. I think I skipped some things. Okay, so we're going to review the applications. We'll invite you in February. We have some group interviews. It's a half a day interview. I think students come in around 8 in the morning, and you're there to about noontime, 11-ish. Let's see. Yeah, so you'll meet some of our students. You'll meet our faculty. We'll ask you questions. Normally we get, this changes every year, anywhere from 40 to 60 applicants. We look for a class of about 20. So we shoot for admitting around 22-ish, and then usually it goes to about 20, right? So we're looking for a class of about 20. You'll get an acceptance letter if you're admitted. It'll ask you, are you going to come to UB? We only have a full-time status program. You'll be asked about what placement you prefer your first year. We'll try to, the placement coordinator will try to get that for you. Again, it depends on how many students we have and how many counselors we have. So once you give them the grade level that you prefer, they'll try to place you with a counselor that you will have to interview with, right? So you won't have to come here to Buffalo. If you're local, you can do it in person. If you're not local, like if you live in New York City or another state, you can Zoom, but you will have to have a meeting with the counselor to make sure it's a fit, right? So the counselor will kind of interview you to see if it's a good fit. Let's see. If you don't get accepted, so basically there'll be a letter. They'll let you know if you get accepted or if you're on the waiting list or if it's, if you're denied. You'll get that by, I think, April 1st, if I'm right. Let's see. We try to, once we do the interviews, we try to move really quickly. So we'll let people know within a couple of weeks after those interviews if they've been accepted. Let's see. And then sometime in May, there'll be a brief orientation. Well, before that, in March, after folks have been notified of their acceptance, we'll have a day where we answer more questions for people that have been accepted and haven't made a decision yet. So there'll be a day where we kind of have a Zoom meeting. And then in May, we'll have an orientation for everyone that's accepted into the program, and classes will start at the end of May. And that's about it. So, Renat, if you want to, and then give me 1 second. My computer is losing its charge.